A lot to get into, but I have to start with the NBA's play-in tournament. The tournament is officially set. Seeds 7 through 10 are officially underway. A tremendous regular day of the season finale in the NBA. There were so many moving pieces, and that was kind of the storyline for the last couple weeks, right? And throughout the entire season was all these teams jockeying for position in the standings, jockeying to see who they might face. But this is what ended up happening yesterday in the season finale of the regular season for the NBA. Was there were a lot of machinations going on. There was a lot of gamesmanship that was being employed and at work here. Strategies were utilized, and the common theme was that teams were trying to avoid the Lakers in the first round. That was the theme. And even the first and second rounds. Because when you look at what some of these teams were doing, the Clippers and the Nuggets yesterday, they were maneuvering to try and avoid the Lakers in the first and second round. That's what they were doing. And it was egregious and blatantly obvious that they were trying to do that. It wasn't even a secret at that point, because what happened was, you look at the Clippers, there was clearly an embargo against the Lakers making the field of 6 in the play-in. None of those teams wanted the Lakers to avoid the play-in. They all wanted the Lakers to be a part of the play-in tournament. And the reason why this was so egregious and this was so obvious is because you look at the Clippers first, and they conveniently didn't play Paul George and Kawhi Leonard the final 2 games of the regular season, which had they beaten the Houston Rockets, who are the worst team in the NBA, and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who have the second worst record in the Western Conference and the third worst record in the NBA altogether, that would have cinched up the 3rd seed. All they needed to do was win those 2 games, which were easily attainable, to lock up the 3 seed. But they knew that if they were to lock up the 3 seed, if the priority was clinching that 3rd seed, there'd be a good chance that they could face the Lakers in the first round as a 6 seed if the Denver Nuggets were to beat the Portland Trailblazers. So Steve Ballmer, Lawrence Frank, Ty Lue, those players did not want to see LeBron and the Lakers in the first round. And they made it pretty blatantly clear that we're going to throw in our proverbial towel and settle for a 4 seed. And that way, at the earliest, again, the assumption is that the Lakers are going to beat the Golden State Warriors in the first day of the play-in tournament. And if that assumption holds, they'd be the 7 seed. So you wouldn't have to face the 7 seed until the Western Conference Finals. And that's clearly, again, the strategy that the Clippers are employing here. They wanted to avoid the Lakers in the first and second round. But it's not just the Clippers that employed this similar strategy, because the Denver Nuggets were also primed to make a big statement and land that 3 seed. But what they instead tried to do and opted was to willingly offer the 3 seed to the Clippers. Because you look at the 2 schedules, Denver Nuggets had the Portland Trailblazers, a desperate team that was looking to make the field of 6 and avoid that play-in tournament. But that game was over within the first 2 minutes. It was a 10-point, it was a double-digit lead for the Blazers about 2 minutes into the game. Nikola Jokic only played 17 minutes in this basketball contest. And here I thought this might have been a big game for the Denver Nuggets, but they were saying, well, listen, if the Lakers beat the Pelicans in their season finale and we win, now we have to face them in the first round as a 3 seed and them as a 6 seed. Yeah, I don't want to do that. This was like the Denver Nuggets were participating in the 4x100 relay race, and they've done a tremendous job gaining a big lead through the first 3 laps. And now all they have to do is hand off the baton to their anchor, and instead they kind of intentionally muffed the handoff. And we're hoping that someone else could take advantage of that mistake and that slip up and leap them for that 3 seed. And it was quite obvious. Now, the Dallas Mavericks, they were also utilizing a little bit of gamesmanship here because their fate had pretty much already been sealed. They knew, since they had the tiebreaker over the Lakers and over the Blazers, that they were going to be the 5 seed. Now, the question is whether they would face the Clippers as the 4 seed or the Denver Nuggets as the 4 seed. So they were able to just mail it in. But the Denver Nuggets and the Clippers, this was the ultimate ploy and the ultimate machination to try to avoid the Lakers. Both of the teams didn't know exactly what the other team would do. The Clippers, in a sense, had their fate in their own hands because they knew that if they were to throw the game, again, they wouldn't have to face their LA partner that early in the postseason. But that was the big takeaway because it was pretty obvious when you looked at the players that were active for both of these teams what the strategy was. And again, neither team, I think, believes that the Lakers will truly lose to the Golden State Warriors. And if that assumption holds true, then again, the Lakers would be the 7th seed. They'd face the 2 seed in the Phoenix Suns. But then the winner of that plays the winner of the 3 and the 6 seed. And both the Clippers and the Nuggets were in that position, and they both opted to shy away from it. And so if they thought that they were kind of being sly with that, Jared Dudley, and I tweeted this out when the Clippers all of a sudden sat Kawhi Leonard and Paul George against the Houston Rockets. I was saying, well, this is obviously an attempt to lose again, and one loss is all that was needed for them to lock up the number 4 seed. Jared Dudley tweeted the same thing, that teams were trying to avoid the Lakers, and the reality is that's the situation. Teams were trying to avoid them, and they probably could have utilized a more discreet way of getting that point across. But